Hi. Um, Good evening. Today is September 12th, 2025. My name is Matthew Underwood. My friends and family who are gonna watch this, they know that Underwood it's an alias, not my real name. I think unfortunately though, the time calls for aliases. Sad as that may be, but it does. I've never done this before. I'm not gonna be perfect on here, not gonna sound professional all the time. I'm just a guy. But I felt compelled to do this after what I've seen the past day and a half. I'm 25 years old. I was a child of the millennia, born in 2000. Um, Growing up, I came from a conservative family, although a broken family. My parents divorced when I was 10. It was a rough divorce, not easy on anyone, as those things typically are. But I always, had pretty conservative, patriotic values. Um, as I grew up, I was always interested in politics. I felt that I would always lead a political life. I thought that was what my calling was. I always felt it was from an early age. Um, I worked in politics in high school, worked on campaigns, worked for politicians locally from where I live. I loved it. It was always my passion. Um, Going through college, I fell into addiction. I did, and it messed up my life a little bit. I mean, I got everything back on track, but during that time, I fell out of the political sphere. I burned some bridges. I messed up. It's my fault. I admit it. You go through life, you live and learn, and eventually, I've had to make a living. I had to support myself, and I wound up in another career that I never expected to be in. Not that it's a bad career. I've made a very good living for myself in the years that I've kind of fallen out of the political realm. I've picked myself up. I've done what I've could, and it became satisfying. As weird as that sounds, there's a time in my life where I felt that I would always be a political person. I would always work in politics. Politics would be my career because I always loved this country. I always came from a conservative nationalist background. And although my views have drastically changed over time, yeah, I was always from that tradition. But I was at a point in my life where I felt that although I regretted that a political life had kind of left me behind, I was comfortable, and I felt easy, and I felt that I had found a new career, that would be maybe not as fulfilling, but certainly very fulfilling. And I felt comfortable in life. Then the events of Wednesday, September 10th, 2025 happened. That's why I had to make this. Um, all of you who are watching, you know what happened. Of course, it was the assassination of Charlie Kirk. We all saw it. I mean, it's brutal to watch. I don't know how many people saw. There were multiple videos, multiple angles. I probably saw the worst one. You watch that video and he wasn't going to make it. I mean, it was horrible. But I almost think it's kind of strange in a sense that I'm saying it was so horrible to watch. And it was, don't get me wrong, but I'm a zoomer, I'm a Gen Zer, okay? My first phone was an iPhone. You know, we've grown up on social media, on the web. We see this type of violence all the time. Not that it's any good, but everyone is to a degree. in my generation at least, desensitized to these type of things. Not that that's a good thing, but I saw that and my heart sank, as I think did the hearts of all Americans. True Americans, of course. I'll get to that later. Um, this is a seminal event in the history of our country. I don't think I realized that until after it happened. Just to talk about Charlie Kirk a little bit and my own personal opinions on him. I wasn't always the biggest fan. I certainly wasn't not a fan. I liked Charlie. Being a conservative, being a young conservative. Charlie was the leader almost in some senses. I mean, there were other figures, other voices, of course, other influencers, other activists, but Charlie kind of stood out from the rest in a certain way because he was always focused on the youth. He was always focused on my generation, who are going to have to live not only through what we've already lived through, but in the aftermath. We've got a heavy responsibility. My generation. I'm gonna expand on that later, but we've got a heavy responsibility. It's it's tough, but at the same time, I feel blessed to say that my generation is going to intersect with history. There's a great quote. I think it was God. I think it was a Vladimir Lenin quote, if I'm not mistaken. Which Lenin obviously I'm a conservative. Okay, I'm not a communist, not a Bolshevik. I hate the Bolsheviks. I have no love for communism. But Lenin, I believe it was Lenin who had the quote who said, "Some decades nothing happens, and in some days decades happen." I might be I'm paraphrasing, but I feel like the past 2 days, in a sense, decades have happened. Or maybe decades haven't happened per se, but the path of the next several decades has been set. It's been charted. Um, as I was saying in regards to Charlie Kirk, you know, again, I wasn't not a fan of his. I'm on the right. I know there's groypers out there, Nick Fuentes followers, those type of people who really didn't like Charlie Kirk. Although that's not to implicate them. I've watched all the coverage from everyone, and I think Nick was just as devastated as we all are, um, and furious. Really, devastated doesn't begin to. His wife is devastated. His children are devastated. We are upset, but we're not devastated. We're furious. We're pissed. We are fucking pissed. But just to say, like I was saying, I wasn't that type of right wing. Groiper, Nick Fuentes. I wasn't that type of right wing. I certainly wasn't, more establishmentarian. I wasn't, a Ben Shapiro, Daily Wire guy either. I would say I was probably a little bit more to the right than Charlie, although probably not as. I was a little bit more to the right than Charlie. Still am. Now I've of course had minor disagreements with Charlie, but overall I was a fan. I liked Charlie Kirk. Was he my favorite? No. Wasn't my favorite voice. In my generation, if older folks are watching this, you don't really get it as much as people in my generation do, but there are people out there who talk about this stuff, who people in my generation follow, and we all have our favorites. We all have people that we listen to. We can call them out by name. Um, and Charlie was never my favorite. Not that I didn't like him, but he was just never my favorite. But When I heard of his death, I take that back. When I heard of his assassination, I don't want to call it murder or death. That's not what happened. He was assassinated in cold blood. One of the most brutal acts, one of the worst days in American history. And I'm going to expand on that later, just why it was so awful. But when Charlie died, I think it awoke something in me, certainly. But more than me, it awoke something in everyone in my generation. I had friends of mine. You could almost call them former friends, just because not that I don't like them, but I haven't heard from them in years. They were friends of mine from high school. It had been years since I had heard from them. And out of the blue, they texted me this morning saying, "Hey Matt, I want to hear your thoughts on this." And they're not the only ones. There's been a lot of that. A lot of that. A lot of people that I not necessarily that we had bad relationships, we but just people that I hadn't heard from in a long time. People in my generation, people in Gen Z who I had not necessarily fallen out with, but fallen away from, who I heard from out of the blue. And they turned to me because they knew, unlike them, they were, I wouldn't say normies. They all kind of were politically inclined. They were all, conservatives. They were all patriots. They all loved America like me. But I was the only one that was really outspoken about it. I was politically correct. Or rather, I was politically incorrect, I should say. And you know what? I pissed a lot of people off. Whether that was in high school, less so in college, but more so in high school. Um, it turned a lot of people off for me, but I was just who I was, and I wasn't afraid to speak my mind. I've always been that way. Um, and I had these people reach out to me, and they just saying, because they knew that I out of most of my friends, more than any of my friends, I really cared about politics. I understood politics. I understood history. That's not to hype myself up. That's not to pat myself on the back or lift myself up. That's just the reality. I've always had an interest in that. It's always been my strong suit. It's always been something that I've cared about. Politics, history, all of that. It's always been a passion of mine. And they reached out to me, after in some cases years, hadn't heard from them, just to say, "Matt, what are your thoughts on this?" And I gave it to them. I'm pissed. I'm upset. But more than that, I'm determined. I'm determined. And we all should be. This is a wake up call. That's why I'm doing this right now. Like I said, I used to be in politics. I used to work in politics. I used to be much more politically involved than I am now. Um, of course, I fell out of that life. Didn't expect to, but I did, and I kind of made my own life in another sphere, in another realm. No one. I can't fucking sit on the sidelines anymore. Nor can you, by the way. Nor can you. We can't sit on the sidelines anymore. This is war. This is fucking war. And that is not a call for violence by any means. I want to stress that above all else. The last thing I would do is call for violence. Or even more than that, the last thing I would do is say the things that mainstream media, that leading left wing politicians said about Charlie Kirk. No, my enemies are not Hitler. No, my enemies are not Lenin. I don't even want to go there. The last thing that is needed right now is more violence. And if anyone on the right side of the aisle acts out in that way, if there are reprisals, if there are violence from our side and we can commit it, we have all the guns, they have none of them. Yet they're always the ones using them. Don't start. Don't start. That's all I'm saying. Don't start from our side. From our side. From the American patriots. Don't take up arms. Civil war, that leaves parents without sons. It leaves fathers without sons. It leaves sons without parents. Daughters without parents. There are nations today that still bear the scars of their civil wars. In some ways, America being one of them. I think in many ways, America being one of them. But that's the last thing we want is violence. That being said, what happened on Wednesday, September 10th, 2025, was nonetheless a call to arms. A different form of arms, not violent arms, but it made it crystal clear the fight that we're in. Crystal clear. If it wasn't clear before, it is now. Simply is. Of course, yesterday was the 24th anniversary of 9/11. It was crazy. It was the day after he was assassinated was the 24th anniversary of 9/11. And I was thinking about this. I know it's been a day and a half at this point since Charlie was assassinated. But I've had to take some time to think about this. Some people took a night. I had to take a little bit longer. Charlie's assassination is my generation's 9/11. I don't think people realize that. If you're not from my generation, even if you're not a conservative from my generation, if you're not on the right and in my generation, if you're not an American fundamentally and on my generation, I don't think you understand what this meant to my generation, to my people. This was our 9/11. Because who was Charlie Kirk? Fundamentally, when you think about it. I mean, what was he all about? Yeah, you can say he was an establishment figure. I get it. In some ways he was. He was an activist, he was a pundit, he was a talk show host, whatever. All right? But what actually made him famous, okay? For the normies in my generation, who don't follow politics. I watched when Trump was elected in 24. I of course was watching all the live streams. I watched the news because I just wanted to see what they were saying. But mainly I was paying attention to the live streams, and Charlie Kirk was one of the many other live streams that I watched when Trump was elected. But for like the normie, you know, millennial, Gen Z, or even Gen Alpha, the people younger than I am, um, you know, how do you know Charlie Kirk? You know him. You definitely know him. You've seen him on TikTok. I don't even have TikTok, okay? Maybe I'm a Luddite. I don't have much social media. I'm not really a social media guy. I love Twitter, but I don't post anything on there. I just follow stuff. Um, you know, do you know him through TikTok? I mean, and you see what he does every day. What made him famous? What really made him famous to the normie? Because I get it. Conservatives, we know him. We follow his stuff. We've watched him, his long form stuff. But what made him famous to the regular person? Again, the normie. It was what he was doing the day that he was assassinated. And what was he doing? Holding an event. Yeah, he was. But what was he really doing? He was sitting down as an American, as a political person, as someone who held deeply held beliefs. And he was saying, hey, if you disagree with me, come to the front of the line. Come to the front of the line. I want to talk to you. And we're going to debate. We're going to have our differences. But we're going to hash it out. And we're both free to do so. Because we're free Americans. And we have the right to speak our minds. That's what Charlie Kirk did. That's what he was famous for above all else. Above all else, that's what made him a household name, was that he went into hostile environments and he said, hey, if you disagree with me, I want to hear from you. You, above all else. I don't want to hear from the person that agrees with me. I want to hear from you, the person that disagrees with me. And I want to talk to you and debate with you like Americans should. And they fucking shot him for it. They shot him for it. For doing the thing, the quintessential American thing. There is nothing more American than what Charlie Kirk did every single day. And they assassinated him for it. You know, I said that this is my generation's 9/11. I'm going to come back to that. Here's how and why it is. Like I said, Charlie Kirk died standing for free speech, free public debate, standing for open discourse. Despite our political differences, we have a right as Americans to discuss them in the open without fear of violence, without fear of oppression. And they murdered him for that. This, what happened to Charlie, is in some ways a greater attack on America than the towers coming down 24 years ago. You know, the Twin Towers, the Pentagon, they were American symbols for sure. You know, they were great buildings. Thousands of people died. It was thousands of innocent people died. It was a tragedy, don't get me wrong. They were just structures, you know? They were just buildings. The Pentagon was rebuilt quickly. The towers, of course, they came down. They were never rebuilt, but there's an entirely new complex there. The Freedom Tower is taller than the World Trade Centers ever were. That's not to minimize what happened on 9/11. It was a tragedy. But Al Qaeda, yes, they struck at the heart of America, but they didn't strike at the heart of what it means to be an American. The day after 9/11, you know, I was too young to remember this, but anyone who was old enough to remember it, they will all say that the day after 9/11 was, in a certain sense, one of the best days of their lives. Everyone, left, right, center, it didn't matter your political beliefs. Everyone came together. There was this solidarity across American communities after the towers came down that people had really never even felt before. There was this unity and a true organic unity that we've never had since, that we probably never had before, frankly. But in some ways, the assassination of Charlie Kirk was worse. Because although bin Laden and Al Qaeda murdered a lot of innocent people on 9/11, and they struck at the heart of America, when Charlie Kirk was assassinated, doing the thing that is the most quintessential thing about being an American: free debate, free speech, open discourse, hashing out our political difference without fear of violence or oppression in the public square. And they murdered him for that. They assassinated him for that. Bin Laden might have struck at the heart of America. Charlie Kirk's killers, plural, they struck at the heart of Americanism. Because unlike when the towers came down, there was no unity to be found. No unity to be found after Charlie's assassination. The opposite, actually. We've all seen it, you know. There are people all over this country. I can't even call them Americans. I don't give a shit. I don't give a fuck if they have a piece of paper. They are no more American than someone living in China or Russia or India or Africa. They are not my brothers. They are not Americans. They are beyond that. They are anti-Americans. They may live here. They may have a piece of paper that says they're citizens. They are lower than scum. They are my enemy. They should be all of your enemies. If you love this country, they are your enemies. More than any enemy abroad, they are your enemies. Again, cannot stress this enough. That does not mean that violence is the answer. Violence is the worst thing that can happen right now. More violence, it better not come. It better not fucking come. That would be the worst thing. But mark my words. Although violence is not the answer, these cretins, these anti-Americans who walk amongst you, many of them are in Congress. Many of them are on your TV screens. Many of them are billionaires. They're in Wall Street. They're in Hollywood. They're in the media, like I said. They're in academia. They're your teachers. They're your professors. Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. They are teaching you. They are teaching you. Teaching, quote unquote. They're teaching you right now. They are your enemy. Don't listen to them. Go to college, sure. I don't think that's a bad thing. Don't trust them. They are worse than our greatest enemies overseas, and they walk amongst us at home. They cheered, they celebrated when Charlie was assassinated. And what does that really mean? Yeah, sure, they had political differences with them. I get that, you know. There's a lot of people I had political differences with. Doesn't mean I would cheer their assassination. So it's not only a difference in humanity that we have between ourselves and the people who cheered Charlie's assassination. There is a difference in humanity because, you know, if, let's say, God forbid, let's say if, you know, again, God forbid, let's say if AOC or Bernie Sanders or Barack Obama was assassinated. That would be a dark, dark day for America. That would be horrible, awful. I would not cheer. None of you would cheer. None of you would cheer. I believe that. I know that because we're actual Americans. But they, when Charlie was assassinated, they cheered. They wanted it to happen. And I'm not just talking about the trolls and the psychos on social media. I'm talking about the influencers on the left. I'm talking about people in the media, CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times. Look at the way they edited his Wikipedia page after he fucking died. People in Congress, our leaders, the billionaires who fund this type of stuff. They cheered. Whether they did so publicly or not, they cheered. They celebrated this. They celebrated the assassination of a man who was fulfilling the most quintessential, the most fundamental American ideals Charlie Kirk was living up to. And they cheered it when he was murdered for doing just that. Yeah. Like I said, I don't give a shit if they have a piece of paper that says they're a citizen. They are not my fellow citizens. They are my enemies. They are our enemies. They are not Americans. Worse than that, not only are they not Americans, they are actively working against us. They are anti-Americans. They may live here, they may vote here. They stand against everything that this country was built on. Period. Full stop. I again, like I said, I'm not a professional. It's the first time I've done this. You know, I haven't done this before. I used to work in politics, never in front of a camera. I worked for campaigns, I worked for political activist stuff, stuff like that. Um, but Charlie's assassination was a wake up call. There's no more sitting on the sidelines. I don't care who you are. They attacked us. They attacked us as much as they attacked us on 9/11. And after the towers came down, how many hundreds of thousands, millions of Americans signed up to fight our enemies overseas? A lot of them did. A lot of them did. Our fight is different. Our fight will not be fought with guns and weapons of war. It will not be fought through violence. I cannot stress that enough. We will not. We will not turn to violence. It can't happen. It cannot fucking happen. We will not turn to violence. But this is a war just like that. In fact, it's even greater than that. This is a spiritual war above all else. Yes, it's a war for our country. It is. It is a war for our country. It is a war for what it means to be an American. It is a war for the future of our country. It is a war for our unborn children. But it is a war. Not a violent one. There will not be any guns fired. There will not be any spears thrown. But it is a war. It is a war unlike any other. It is. Evil walks among us, and they hold power in this country. True evil. I'm going to touch on that later. I don't think I can go into it right now. I need to speak more on the significance of what happened and why it's so terrible and so tragic and so but at the same time it brings clarity. It does. It's clarity. I think that's what we needed. Sign up. Fight. Again, not with violence. It's the last thing we need. The last thing we need is more violence. I'm so serious. I may be saying fighting words, and I am, because I mean it. We're going to fight, but not with violence. God, no. Not with violence. Sign up. That's why I'm doing this right now. I sat on the sidelines for too damn long. I needed a wake up call. I fucking got one. This better be your wake up call too. If you love this country, I don't even care if you agree with Charlie. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if you were Charlie Kirk's biggest fan or if you were a detractor, even if you disagreed with him, even if you were of the left. Even if you were of the left, but you love America, join the fight. Our fight is not going to be fought, again, with guns or swords. It's not going to be fought violently. It's going to be fought through ideas. It's going to be fought through truth. It's going to be fought through cunning. It's going to be fought through cunning. But I have faith. I appeal to that more than anything else right now. Have faith that we will win. I love this country. I love this country. I love this country. Sure, you all do too. Um, Next year, 250 years of this country. And if you compare that to, historical entities, Rome, China, for God's sakes, China's 2,000 years old, even more. Russia, 800 plus years old. 250 years doesn't seem like that long to be a nation. But with all of the technological development that has taken place since 1776, it's a long ass time when taken into context. It's a long time. I fear that if this assassination is not the wake up call to you that it was to me, our days are numbered. Let's not let that happen. Let's be serious. Let's be real. The time calls for it. We can have another 250 years, even longer. I believe that. But something's got to change. It's got to change. And I'm going to be on the front lines fighting for that change for the rest of my fucking life. I don't care if it takes my life, like it took Charlie's. I'm going to be there. I have no choice. This is my home. I'm not a Zoran Mamdani. I didn't come from somewhere else. All right? All I know is America. I don't have another home. If this goes, I can't, I'm not I can't go anywhere else. I can't go anywhere else. This is all I've got. This is all you've got. Don't let it slip. Don't let it go. Because it's going. It's going. Look no further than the people who celebrated Charlie's murder. Look no further. And Charlie stood for, again, this is why I think he's an American hero. He is. I think people are really realizing just how much of a hero Charlie Kirk was only now that he's dead. I didn't realize it until he died. Someone said, I can't recall who it was. I think it was Glenn Beck, actually, who was a friend of Charlie's. I'm not a huge Glenn Beck guy. He's not my generation. But, Glenn Beck said Charlie Kirk was an American civil rights hero. I think it was Glenn Beck that said that. And he was right. He was right. He was. Charlie Kirk stood for the most fundamental American civil right. The most fundamental. Freedom of speech. And they killed him for it. He's a martyr. He's an American hero. He's a civil rights hero. I don't care if you had political disagreements with him in the past. He died doing the single most American thing that anyone could ever fucking do. He's a martyr for this country. And the people that cheered on his death, I already said they have to be defeated. Here's how. I'll be honest here. The people who cheer on Charlie's death, we all saw the video. We all saw it. We all saw it painted across our screens. We saw his neck fucking explode. A bullet rip through his neck. Blood everywhere. His 3-year-old daughter ran to him as he was bleeding out because she was scared of the noise. And people immediately, even on the scene that day, stood up and cheered. They did it all over social media. You can't debate with those people. I'm sorry. You can't. You're never going to convince them. You're never going to win them over. They're never going to vote Republican like that even fucking matters. You're never going to win them over. Okay? They're possessed by something not of this earth. That is evil that we saw right there. It's evil we saw over the past day and a half. Pure evil. It is Satan incarnate that we were watching. I've heard many people say before, I don't know who this quote is attributed to, but I've heard people who are kind of irreligious say, I don't believe in God, but I've come to learn demons are real. Yes. Yeah, that's what we saw over the past day and a half. Demons are fucking real. They just cheered that. They made shirts. They made t-shirts depicting Charlie's neck exploding as a celebration. We're never going to be able to debate them. We're never going to win them over. We are never going to convince them to come to our side. We must defeat them. Doesn't mean kill them. Doesn't mean violence. It means restoring the values of this country so that they can never even think of acting the way that they did without forever being so socially ostracized from polite society that they can never hold their head high or leave their house again without immediate universal condemnation and shame. That's what winning looks like. More than that, though. So much more than that. That's just the baseline. That's the baseline. This week before Charlie died, of course, we all saw another horrendous act of violence. Irina. I'm going to mispronounce her last name, so I'm not going to say it. But of course, she was the poor Ukrainian refugee who was stabbed to death senselessly, totally senselessly, by a vagrant, a scumbag who never should have been on the streets. We all know that. Stabbed her to death. She bled out on a train car in Charlotte, North Carolina. A train car, which, by the way, I'm not from Charlotte. I happen to have a very close friend that lives there. I went up and visited him maybe a couple of months ago. We rode that same goddamn train car when I was there. We rode that same damn train car that she was stabbed to death on. Senselessly. Just hits home. It hits home. It really does. She was murdered in cold blood by a disgusting vagrant, a piece of human filth, not even not even worthy of breathing air. Should have never been allowed to walk the streets. Never been allowed to walk the streets. When we win, when Charlie's memory is truly fulfilled, when his legacy is fulfilled, that will never happen. Will never happen. It didn't used to happen. It didn't. We never heard of stuff like that. And you know what? Before I even get into all that, I want to add on. You watch the video of her bleeding out, her sobbing, bleeding out, knowing she's going to die. Luckily, Charlie was gone so quickly, he probably didn't have time to think about it. It was quick and it was painless. Thank God. Thank God that it was that quick and that painless for Charlie. It wasn't that quick and that painless for Irina. She sobbed and wept, knowing that she was going to die. And what did those animals, those pieces of filth around her do? Sat there and went about their business like nothing had happened. No one helped her. No one cared. Nobody cared. That's the type of evil we're up against. That evil. Our country didn't used to be this way. Unfortunately, I spoke about 9/11. 9/11 really changed a lot of things. I don't think anyone in my generation remembers. I know I don't. We didn't live it. We didn't grow up in the country. We didn't grow up in what this country once was. That was lost. I shouldn't say lost, but it went away, hopefully temporarily, many decades ago. when acts like what we saw on the subway, or not the subway, the train in Charlotte, when acts like what we saw on Wednesday, what happened to Charlie, and of course the aftermath of that, there was a time when that was unthinkable in this country. A long time. A long time. Decades. Centuries. When something like that was unthinkable. And if it did happen, the reaction would be swift. It would be swift and it would be just, and it wouldn't happen again. Stuff like that, like what happened to Arena, is a daily occurrence in America. It's a daily occurrence in my generation's America. We've grown up with it. We know what it's like out there. They don't give a shit about us. In fact, the people who really run this country, they hate us. They despise us. They do. They do. And they were so happy that Charlie got assassinated. They loved it. They loved it. Those are our enemies. We have to defeat them. We have to defeat them. We have no choice. They have to go. Again, last thing I want is violence. What I am calling for, what I am saying that must happen, is get organized, get involved, do the work, fight, stand up for this country, stand up for your values. And you know what? Stand up for Charlie Kirk's values. Because what were his values, really? They were the values of America. It goes in this order. God comes first. God comes first. Don't forget that. God above all else. Next is your family. We love our families. We cherish our families. One of the things Charlie always said to young people in my generation, get married, have children. Do it quickly. Don't wait. I couldn't agree more. Do it. You want to fight the evil that murdered Charlie? Love God, love Christ, devote your life to Him. Start a family, love your family. Be responsible. If you're a man, be a provider. If you're a woman, raise your children. Well, both of you raise your children, but nurture your children if you're a woman. That's how you fight evil. That's how you do it. That's how we win. Love God. Love your family. And lastly, love your country. America's a special place. It's unlike anything else. We all know that. I mean, we all say that. We all say America's a special place. We all say it's unlike any other place in the world, but I actually don't think we know that. My generation doesn't. Gen Z doesn't. We don't know that America is the greatest place on earth. It is, trust me. But with what we've grown up with what we have had to live through, you would be mistaken if it's not the greatest place on earth. Or I should say, you wouldn't be mistaken. You wouldn't be mistaken if it's not the greatest place on earth. There's a lot of people in my generation that despair, that don't believe in this country the way that past generations did. I would count myself among them. I love America. It's my home. But I hate to say, I don't have the same faith in America that my parents, that my grandparents did, that they still do have. Maybe some of that is their own naivete, but I think a lot of it's genuine. There's no reason why we shouldn't have that same faith in this country. There's no reason. Good reason. We've witnessed some horrible events in our life. Wednesday's events notwithstanding. Probably put the cap on it all. But it's got to be a call to action. Not to arms, but to action. We've got to get involved. We have to make this country a place where we can once again be proud to be Americans. We've got no fucking choice. This is our home. We don't have anywhere else to go. We have to win. We have to make sure that this is a place where no one will ever cheer if something, God forbid, like what happened to Charlie Kirk happens again. We have to make this a place where what happened to Arena on the train never happens again, where those people are locked up. We have to make this a place where we can raise a family. Young people, we can't raise families. Part of that is social, you know. This won't be the last video I make. I'm going to get a lot more into all of my views later on, but you know, my generation, we're having kids later than any other generation. If we're even having kids, if we're even finding a partner. There's a lot of reasons for that. Economic, there's a lot of social reasons for that. That's not America. Should be able to have a family on one income, have a good life. Should be able to love God without fear of persecution. It's not the country we live in anymore. It's not. Should be able to raise your kids in an environment where their souls aren't going to be corrupted from the day they pick up a cell phone. It's not the America we live in today. Should be able to live in a country where you can actually call your neighbors brothers, where they can actually be your friends. Half of our neighbors aren't even from this country. They're not even from here. They just come here. This is not their home. This is not their land. There's no blood connection to it. They don't give a shit. They are here to either take from our system, rely on the government, or they are here to climb a ladder. They are here to step over our heads as they work up the corporate ladder. They're not Americans. They flooded our country, welcomed in by the powers that be. We shouldn't live in a country like that. That's not even a country. That's not even a country. That's just some fake border. Not even a border. Of course there's no border when you have these foreigners that flood our land. That's just a fake zone. It's nothing. It means nothing. It means nothing. It's not what Charlie Kirk was for. It's not what he was about. Again, it's not like I was the biggest Charlie Kirk fan in the world. I didn't hate him. I wasn't not a fan. I liked him. But I wasn't his number one hero. I wasn't his number one fan. But he was an American. He was an American hero. He was. I didn't realize that until he died. But again, he was, and he was because he died doing the most fundamental American thing possible. But when we win, all those things that I mentioned, we're going to be able to restore that America that my generation has never lived with from the day that we were born. That was already gone by the time we were born. It was already gone by the time we were born. It's only gotten worse as we've grown up. Only gotten worse as we've grown up. If Charlie Kirk's death means anything, if his assassination means anything, it means that we've got to fight. We've got to fight every day to restore the country that we once had, to restore the America that we must have, that it could be once again. There's no reason that it can't. It's only a matter of willpower. Have the willpower. Take it upon yourself. Get involved. Step off the sidelines. That's what I'm doing tonight. That's why I'm doing this right now. It's why I'm recording this video. Step off the goddamn sidelines. Get the fuck involved. Because if you don't, it's going to get a whole lot worse. Our home is going to be stripped away from us. Our country is going to be gone. It's too important. No delays. Get involved. Don't stop. Don't stop fighting. Never stop fighting. never stop fighting until this country is once again what it once was. We have no choice. Get into the fight. Again, no violence. No violence. You want to end our fight? You want to end our fight? You want to make it worse for this country? That's what violence will bring. Violence will only hurt our cause. But get in the fight. Get in the fight. Get active. Get involved. I don't care what that means, how that looks like. I don't care what it is. Get involved. Get in the action. If that means if getting involved, if getting in the fight, if that means just working a normal career, having a normal life, supporting, falling in love, getting married, having children, raising them, being a provider, if that's what fighting looks like, what standing up for America looks like, guess what? I'm with you. That's what it looks like. If it means loving God and devoting your life to Jesus, that's what the fight is. That's what it is. If it means doing like what I'm doing right now, talking to people, just speaking your mind, getting the word out there, going to, events, getting involved politically, if that's what the fight looks like, it's what it looks like for you. They're all important. All of those things are important. They all matter. They're all going to be what's going to save this country. Do it. Get involved. This is a wake-up call. It's a wake-up call. The time is now. The time is now. We're young. I'm not that young. I'm 25 years old. My generation is young compared to others. Our country has left us behind. I always talk about, you hear these stupid boomers, these stupid ignoramus boomers talk about and whine about. It's the most selfish generation, by the way. The boomer generation, their fundamental driving principle in life, and again, I love my grandma. She's a boomer. It's not all of them, but most of them. The fundamental driving principle in the psyche of a boomer is pure selfishness. All you would hear them complain about is how mortgage rates were 15% in 1980 when they bought their home. That's worth millions of dollars now. Of course, nowadays, what they don't tell you is, back then mortgage rates might have been 15%, but a home was only about 2 or 3 times the average income. Today, your average new home price is 7 times the average income. My generation can't even own a fucking home. We can't even own a home. How are we going to raise our kids in this country? It didn't used to be like this. It didn't used to be like this. Past generations, they got careless, they got lazy, they got selfish, they let it slip away. And it's fallen onto our heads, our shoulders, our responsibility now to restore what we never had, but we know is possible. We know once was. It's up to us to bring that back. Charlie's assassination made it crystal clear. If we don't get into this fight, if we don't get involved, that America, it's already slipped away from us. It keeps slipping away. We can't let it keep slipping away. We've got to get it back, or our home is going to be gone. The hour is late, people. Get in the fucking game. Get in the game. Don't have much time left. I know. It's been a hard day and a half. I just watched before I came on here. In fact, it's why I came on so late. I watched Charlie's wife, Erica, give a speech. Of course, she was devastated. Honestly, I don't even know how she made the speech. I don't even get it. I'm not married, but I've never been married. If I watched the love of my life get his fucking neck exploded, blood everywhere, my children, my little children witness it, we all witness it in front of my eyes, I don't know. I would be contemplating suicide. And I'm a pretty upbeat I'm a fairly upbeat person, I should say. I'm not a suicidal person by any means. By any means. I'm not. It's horrible. But witnessing something like that, it makes you want to lose faith in God. Not that you should. Not that you should. Erica did. She did. She doubled down. That woman's a hero, just like Charlie is. I digress. Anyways, I don't know how she did it, but she gave that speech tonight. Yes, she honored her husband, of course. She honored God, of course. That woman was strong. She said, get in the fight. Don't let Charlie's memory go to waste. Don't let his legacy wash away. She was right. Don't let it go away. Don't let it go away. Save this country. Do what Charlie would have wanted to do. What Charlie would have wanted you to do. Get in the fight. Do your part. Doesn't matter how that looks. You know what it looks like. It can be just having a stable family. It can be worshiping God. All of the above. It can be getting involved politically. It can be talking to people like I am right now. It doesn't matter. You're in the fight if you're doing that. You got to do it. After what happened Wednesday, we don't have a choice. If you're truly an American, if you love this country, get up, stand up, get in the fight. Nothing else matters. I know that this can all be heavy, can be depressing, it's hard to listen to. I think we as Americans, not all of us, I get it. A lot of Americans don't share my faith. A lot of us do, though, particularly on the right. But don't despair. Don't despair. Get angry, yes. Be determined. Be pissed. I'm determined. I'm pissed. I'm angry. You know, I'm getting put into action here, as should all you. But don't despair. Do not despair. I recall the early church when Christ was crucified, when our God was crucified. There were 12. There were only 12. Only 12 that followed Christ. And all but one of them met brutal, excruciatingly painful deaths. They were murdered. Every single one of them. Because they believed. Because they spoke the truth. And to their deaths, as painful and torturous as they were, they kept speaking the truth. And it was because of their determination. It was because they didn't give up. It's because they kept speaking the truth. They kept fighting for God. They kept fighting for Christ. That our faith conquered the greatest empire the world had ever known at that point, Rome. And from there, our faith spread across the seas, came to this continent, and conquered the globe. They held true. They stuck to their faith. They stuck to the truth that was God. They never gave up, even in the face of certain death, even in the face of a painful, torturous demise. They kept the faith. They kept speaking the truth. Do not despair. Follow in the example of the disciples. Keep the faith. Speak the truth. Stand up for God. Stand up for your family. Stand up for your friends. Love them all. And stand up for your country. Love your country. It's what Charlie would have wanted. It is. It's what I'll leave you with. Get in the fight. Get involved. This is a wake-up call. I'm gonna start to make this a nightly series. I don't know if anyone's gonna watch. I don't really care, honestly. I got to do my part, and you do too. You do too. But I'm gonna do more videos like this every weeknight. It's a Friday. Not gonna do any more on the weekend. Um, but next week I'll be back. And I'm not gonna stop as long as I live. It's too important. Our country is too important. Our families are too important. Our values are too important. God, Jesus Christ, is too important. So I'm going to keep at it. My message to you is get involved. Do what you can. Restore America. It's our home. We had nowhere else to go. Do your part. God bless. Good night.